The camera flash hit me right in the eyes. Not a blink, not a warning, just a burst of white heat across my vision, followed by the soft inhale of 36 guests realizing what they were seeing. For a second, the whole banquet hall froze inside that single frame. I could smell the sharp tang of the flashbulb, ozone and burnt dust, and the faint citrus perfume from someone leaning too close. His hand still gripped mine. The ring sat cold and snug on my finger. My cousin's fiancé didn't let go. He smiled. I didn't. My name is Brielle. I'm 31 years old, and this is how they tried to humiliate me in front of everyone I love. On camera. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell me where you're listening from in the comments. The banquet hall smelled like candied citrus and high-end desperation. That kind of designer scent you can't quite place, but you know someone paid too much for it. Gold light fell from hanging bulbs wrapped in sheer chiffon, casting halos on the polished marble floor. Somewhere, an ice bucket cracked with the sound of melting cubes. My wine glass had left a damp circle on the linen napkin, and I was trying to rotate it to a clean side when the MC tapped his mic. He said it was time for the toasts. The chatter dimmed. Chairs scraped softly, glasses clinked, the room settling into that collective pause before spectacle. My hand shook, just slightly, not from nerves, more like that tremor you get when your body knows something you haven't admitted yet. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I could handle sitting this close to the man who used to know exactly how my laughter sounded in the dark, except now he was engaged to my cousin, and she was glowing. God, was she glowing. Lana always glowed. It was her default setting. Even as kids in our small Minnesota town, she'd step into a room and the air would rearrange around her. Teachers bent rules for her. Boys carried her backpack. She could cry and still look camera ready. Once, she accidentally ripped my dress during the Christmas pageant and somehow still got the solo, her halo slipping just right under the church lights. Back then, told myself it was fine. Family. Blood. She'd grow out of the need to win every frame. She didn't. When her invitation arrived, creamy cardstock, gold edges, perfect script, I booked the flight anyway. Because that's what you do. You show up, even when your stomach knots at her handwriting. I spent hours picking the right dress. Pastel blue, safe but flattering. Curled my hair until my fingers burned. I even ironed out the crease where the price tag had been before I snipped it off. When I arrived, the photographers were already circling the room like buzzards with $6,000 lenses. They moved in practiced silence, snapping candids that were anything but. I didn't expect Ethan to speak. My cousin's fiancé, tall, charming, the kind of man who knew how to fill a doorway without saying a word. His suit was tailored but casual, sleeves rolled up just enough to show he wasn't trying too hard. He rested one hand on Lana's shoulder, his other cradling a cocktail that glowed amber under the lights. When he raised his glass, the air changed. "Before I toast the love of my life," he said, voice smooth, steady, almost intimate, "I want to honor someone else in this room." A ripple of polite curiosity moved through the guests. I blinked. My fork slipped against the plate. For a heartbeat, I thought he might mention Lana's mom. Gone since last winter. Or maybe some shared story to make everyone laugh before the sentimental crescendo. But then his eyes locked on mine. Not past me, not around me. At me. "Brielle," he said, and something deep in my ribs tightened. "You've always been special. You've seen me at my worst and still stood tall." The room murmured. Lana's smile faltered, confusion edging her lips. My pulse quickened so loud I could hear it between the words. He stepped around the table, one deliberate move at a time. The soft sound of his shoes on marble felt indecently loud. I smelled his cologne before he reached me, spice and cedar and a trace of the past. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small black velvet box, and before I could understand what I was seeing, he popped the lid, took out a diamond ring I'd never seen before, and slid it onto my finger. No music, no laughter, just the snap of camera shutters. For a heartbeat, I thought maybe this was some elaborate joke, one of those viral pranks meant to get 1,000,000 likes before dessert. But the way his fingers lingered said otherwise. That deliberate, devastating act. The photographers didn't stop. If anything, they leaned closer, lenses whirring like insects. Someone gasped so sharply it sounded like they'd swallowed their own breath. Aunt Maureen dropped her fork, the clatter echoing like a gavel strike. Lana stood up so fast her chair scraped the marble. The sound cracked open the silence. What are you doing?" I managed. I didn't pull my hand away. Couldn't. My whole arm had gone rigid. Ethan just looked at me, smiling like he was watching a home movie only he remembered filming. Then Lana's voice sliced through the air. "What is this?" Her tone had edges. I saw the color rise in her neck, the muscles tightening. "I don't know. Ethan just," I stammered, voice breaking on the syllables. "Why do you already have a ring that fits her?" That sentence ripped the breath from the room. She wasn't looking at me anymore, just at him. And then all eyes swung my way, like I was the one who had orchestrated this theater. Ethan lifted his glass. "To love," he said, calm, measured, in all its forms. The clink as his glass touched mine was tiny, but it detonated in my ears. I didn't move, didn't drink. Neither. Did he? Then the silence came again, thicker this time. Lana's hands trembled. Someone whispered her name. Someone else tried to laugh it off. She turned, eyes wet, and stormed toward the exit. Her heels hammered the marble like punctuation marks. The door thudded behind her. And still, the photographers kept shooting. The flashes went off one by one, lightning in a gold-lit storm. I sat there frozen. My pulse thudded in the hollow of my throat. The ring felt heavy, foreign, radioactive. That night, I lasted through the rest of dinner in a blur. People avoided my table like a live wire. The waiters came and went, their polite smiles strained. I excused myself before dessert, murmuring something about a migraine. Outside, the coastal night hit me like cold silk. The valet asked if I needed my car. I said Uber. My phone buzzed, 17 notifications already. My name tagged on strangers' stories. The driver didn't say much, but when I climbed into the back seat, he wordlessly handed me a chilled bottle of water. That tiny act of kindness undid something in me. When I reached my Airbnb, I walked straight to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the mattress. The cheap ceiling fan hummed. My dress pooled around my legs in soft folds, sequins catching stray light from the street lamp outside. I hadn't even taken off my heels. The ring still sat on my finger. I could have slipped it off, thrown it across the room, hurled it into the sink. But instead, I stared at it. The way it glinted under the rotating fan blades, light dancing across the wall in fractured shapes. I wasn't crying. Not yet. But my face felt wet. It took me a moment to realize the tears were already there, silent, effortless, almost apologetic. My phone lit up on the bedspread. "Lana, you really couldn't stand me being happy, could you?" The words glared through the screen. A second later, another notification popped up. An image. A blurry screenshot from someone's Instagram story. Me, stunned. Him holding my hand. Caption. WTF? Plot twist at Lana's dinner. My stomach hollowed. That one photo carried everything. His smirk, my disbelief, the glimmer of the ring. I scrolled, but it was already spreading. Reshared, memed, commented on by strangers dissecting a stranger's humiliation. The videos would follow by morning. The hashtags would multiply. And in that tiny room, with its lemon-scented air freshener and rattling AC, I understood the real cruelty. Ethan hadn't just slipped a ring on my finger. He had choreographed the entire scene, a performance disguised as affection, a humiliation meant to live forever. I reached for the ring again. My fingers trembled as I tried to twist it free, but the metal had warmed against my skin, almost fusing there. For a second, I thought it wouldn't budge. Then it did. Slowly. Reluctantly. I placed it on the nightstand beside my phone. Its reflection gleamed in the dark, catching the light like an eye that refused to close. Sleep didn't come easy. Every time I blinked, I saw the flash again, the crowd's faces frozen mid-gasp, Lana's hand flying to her chest. By dawn, the first article appeared. Viral wedding ring mix-up leaves guests speechless. My face in the thumbnail, his grin beside it, the comments guessed everything but the truth. And that was when something inside me, something tired and quiet, decided this story wasn't going to end where they wanted it to. I woke up to 47 new notifications. Not emails, not texts, mentions, comments, tags. The screen glared too bright against the early morning dark. That cheap motel light filtering through beige curtains. My throat was dry, tongue sticking to the roof of my mouth. For a few seconds, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Just the blue-white glow of other people's opinions stacking up like an avalanche I hadn't built. Somewhere between midnight and sunrise, someone had uploaded a slowed-down, high-contrast clip of the ring moment to TikTok. The title alone made my stomach lurch. I didn't even have TikTok installed anymore. Deleted it after the breakup with Ethan years ago because watching perfect strangers pretend their lives were better than mine had started to feel like slow rot. But there it was. My name was tagged anyway. At Brielle MN. That used to be my handle. I hadn't touched it in months, maybe longer. But now it was everywhere. Trending, dissected, re-edited. Strangers were analyzing the micro expressions on my face like it was courtroom footage. She looks shocked, but not surprised. Look at the way she stares at the ring like she's seen it before. Did you see the cousin's eyes? Guilty. And the worst one, I swear that was rehearsed. Check her smirk at the end. I hadn't smirked. I hadn't smiled. I hadn't done anything but freeze. But the camera didn't care. The camera turned confusion into complicity. Each comment was another nail hammered in by hands I'd never met. Some had profile pictures of cats or babies or sunsets, ordinary people typing extraordinary cruelty from the comfort of their couches. My phone buzzed with each new judgment, a relentless pulse. I scrolled until my thumb ached. By 6:30 a.m., my coffee had gone cold. By 7, I realized I hadn't blinked in what felt like minutes. Lana blocked me that morning. I didn't need her to tell me. I found out because the wedding planning group we shared vanished from my Facebook sidebar. Just gone. Like someone had quietly shut a door. We'd been planning together. I picked out table linens, playlist options, even helped her test perfume samples on my wrist because she couldn't decide which scent felt bridal enough. I'd been the dutiful cousin, the unpaid consultant, the background helper in every story she told. There were still 4 centerpiece samples sitting in my car trunk. I'd picked them, up from a florist on Ventura Boulevard just 2 days before. The glitter had gotten into everything. My hands still shimmered faintly under the motel's weak light. And now, silence, except for the algorithm. By lunchtime, the video had crossed 1.2 million views. The comment sections blurred together, a choir of strangers conducting their own investigation. One post had frozen the exact frame where Ethan's hand brushed mine, captioned, "Chemistry never lies." Another had cropped Lana out entirely, writing, "Some people just have that connection." Ethan hadn't posted a single thing, but his Instagram story from that night was still up. Just a slow pan of the banquet hall, gold light, soft jazz, Lana's silhouette blurred in the background. No voice, no commentary, just ambiance. He didn't tag me. He didn't have to. His silence was louder than any caption. I called him, once, straight to voicemail. Then I texted. Me. Why did you do that? The little checkmark appeared, delivered, but no reply. I waited. An hour, then 3. The sun sank lower, painting the cheap motel walls in rust orange light. My reflection in the mirror looked like someone halfway between awake and unraveling. By the time his name finally lit up my phone, it was past 8. Ethan. It's complicated. You wouldn't understand. I stared at it until the letters blurred, then typed, me. Then explain it. Nothing, no typing bubble, no ellipsis, just silence again. And that was the moment I realized he wanted it this way. He wanted the world to assume we had a secret. He wanted Lana to spiral. He wanted to break something, and he used me to do it. The only question left was why. It took 3 days before I left the Airbnb. 3 days of watching the numbers climb. 3 days of refreshing feeds until my thumbs cramped. My body ran on caffeine and embarrassment. The room smelled faintly of takeout and stale air. I kept the curtains closed, afraid of light, afraid of being seen. When I finally stepped outside, the California sun felt too clean. I squinted, almost resentful of how normal the world looked. I didn't fly back to Minnesota. I couldn't. Not yet. Home meant questions. Home meant sympathy disguised as pity. Instead, I booked a cheap motel off Highway 163. The kind of place that came with beige towels and an air conditioner older than I was. But it was close to one thing that mattered: Golden Hour Studios. I'd noticed their watermark in one of the viral clips, a tiny logo, barely visible in the lower corner. A little digging through tagged posts led me to their website. Trendy, pretentious. Run by 2 brothers who looked like they'd built their careers on drone shots and fake sincerity. One of the event guests had tagged them in a behind-the-scenes story. The exact address was listed under commercial inquiries. I showed up mid-morning, armed with a coffee tray and a fabricated lie. The studio sat in a repurposed warehouse, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs. A chalkboard wall read, "Create Magic Daily." I felt sick just looking at it. The receptionist looked about 24, nails painted pastel blue, smile quick and polite until she actually recognized me. I saw it, the flicker, that microsecond of recognition that said, "Oh, you're her." "Hi," I started, voice calm, steady. "I'm trying to get backup footage from an event you guys shot, just for a family scrapbook." Her smile faltered. "Which couple?" "Lana and Ethan." There it was, the name drop, the silent shift in the air. She blinked once. "You're the cousin?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, that's me." She bit her lip, hesitated, then reached beneath the counter. "One of the shooters left this behind, said it fell out of his jacket. We haven't looked at it." A small plastic bag. Inside, a memory card, unlabeled, black with a faint diagonal scratch down the middle. I stared at it. "You're just giving it to me?" She shrugged. "You probably have more right to it than anyone else." Something in her tone told me she'd seen the video too. I whispered a quiet, "Thanks," and walked out before my voice could betray me. Back at the motel, I borrowed the front desk community laptop. The clerk didn't even ask why, just slid it across the counter with a look that said he'd seen worse. The machine was slow, dusty, one hinge cracked like an old scar, but the card reader still worked. When I inserted the memory card, 4 files appeared. 3 were labeled normally, standard reception footage, wide shots, ambient laughter, the kind of material they'd probably edit into highlight reels for Instagram ads. But the 4th file, rehearsal, take 3, move. My pulse jumped. I clicked it. The video opened to an empty banquet hall. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall windows, cutting golden stripes across the floor. Chairs half arranged, glasses not yet filled, the sound of someone adjusting camera settings. Then Ethan stepped into frame, casual, confident, laughing with one of the videographers. Ethan. So I say her name first, right? Then walk around the table, make it smooth. Videographer. Yeah, keep it organic, don't look at the camera. Ethan chuckled. Got it. Just make sure you get her reaction. That's the money shot. The words hit like a slap. The money shot. My stomach clenched. I paused the video, rewound, played it again, just to make sure I hadn't imagined it. But it was there, clear as day, his tone light, rehearsed, confident. He'd planned it, every movement, every camera angle, every beat of shock. And it wasn't just about the ring, it was about control, turning people into props, turning humiliation into content. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Then I reached for my purse. The ring was still inside, zipped into the smallest pocket. Wrapped in a crumpled napkin from the dinner, I walked into the bathroom. The tiles were cold beneath my bare feet. I dropped it into the sink. The clang of metal against porcelain rang louder than I expected. Sharp. Final. The sound echoed through the small room, bouncing off the mirror, the walls, my chest. For the first time since that night, I didn't feel paralyzed. I felt clear. He wanted the world to believe I was the villain. He'd orchestrated it so neatly that even I'd started to doubt myself. But he'd made one mistake. He'd left evidence. And the cameras? They were still rolling. I drove east with the windows down. Not for the breeze, for the noise. The rush of wind filled the car like static, loud enough to smother the echo of strangers' voices that still buzzed in my skull. Every comment I'd read online replayed like a broken chorus. Accusations, theories, strangers trying to define me from a few seconds of edited footage. The desert highway stretched out in front of me, pale and endless. The air shimmered in the heat haze and the asphalt looked like it might melt if I stared too long. A lone truck roared past, leaving behind a trail of dust that caught the sunlight like smoke. The wind whipped through my hair, tangling it into knots, but I didn't care. It was the only thing drowning out the noise in my head, the buzzing voices, the flashes of that ring, the laughter that hadn't even been laughter. Somewhere outside El Cajon, I pulled into a CVS. The parking lot was half empty, just a few cars baking under the late morning sun. I pushed through the automatic doors, the smell of sunscreen and detergent thick in the air. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed above me, too bright, too sterile. I grabbed the first flash drive I saw, the cheap kind that comes in blister packs near the checkout counter. The cashier barely looked up. She asked if I wanted a receipt. I said no. Back in the car, I plugged the memory card into my laptop, transferred the rehearsal clip, and watched the progress bar inch across the screen. That small rectangle of plastic, so light, so unassuming, held the only thing tethering me to reality. Proof. Proof that I hadn't imagined what Ethan did. Proof that the humiliation wasn't some twisted misunderstanding. It wasn't justice yet, but it was something solid, something that couldn't be denied or twisted by strangers' opinions. Back in the motel room, the air smelled faintly of salt and the lemon cleaner the staff used to disguise the mildew. The curtains billowed gently in the hum of the old air conditioner. I set the laptop on the bed and played the clip again, this time with the volume up. Ethan's voice filled the room, smooth, rehearsed, detached. Brielle, you've always been special. Cut. Brielle, you've seen me at my worst. Cut. To love in all its forms. His voice lingered on the word love like it was part of some performance art piece. He practiced the pauses, timed the smiles, even repeated the toast like he was rehearsing a line in a play he'd already written the ending for. I paused the screen. His face hung there, frozen mid-turn, angled just enough toward the camera to catch the light on his cheekbone. The kind of calculated movement you learn when you've spent too long looking at your own reflection. He knew exactly how this would look on film. He knew it would travel, and now it had. That night, I sat cross-legged on the motel bed, the laptop glow painting blue across my bare knees. My mind kept spinning through options. Who could help? Who might still believe me? The names were few. Then I remembered someone I hadn't spoken to in over 2 years. Harper. She was a freelance video editor, used to date my brother. She'd always been quiet at family dinners, the kind of person who noticed everything but rarely said a word. After their breakup, we never talked again. No bad blood, just the natural distance that happens when the connection in the middle dissolves. But years ago, she'd helped me make a slideshow for my dad's funeral. She'd found these small, tender details in the footage none of us had seen before. Dad smiling in the background whenever Mom spoke, his hand brushing hers during one of the old VHS clips. She had an eye for truth. I didn't know if she'd even answer me, but I messaged her anyway. Hey, it's Brielle. I need help with something important. I attached the rehearsal clip before I could overthink it. The reply came 5 minutes later. Harper. This is insane. That man performed your humiliation. Her words hit harder than I expected. Seeing someone else name it made it real in a way my own brain hadn't allowed yet. Me. Can you help me? There was a pause. Then, Harper. Send everything. I'll clean it up. I'll find the exact frame where he looks into the lens. I did. I uploaded the file, plus the public clip still circulating online. Watching the progress bar crawl again felt like handing over a piece of my sanity. She started that night. I didn't sleep. Instead, I drove again, out toward the edge of the city where the skyline gave way to cliffs and the Pacific pounded itself against stone. The air there felt alive, charged, angry in a way I understood. I parked near a fence and walked barefoot across the sand until the beach sloped into rock. The ocean roared below, waves crashing with a violence that matched my chest. Salt clung to my skin, my hair sticking to my face. Behind me, a few kids were lighting sparklers, their laughter bright and careless. The smell of gunpowder mixed with seaweed and smoke. It reminded me of summers back home, before betrayal had a shape or a name. I sat on a cold boulder, phone in hand, watching the tide pull itself apart, waiting. At 12:07 a.m., the screen lit up. Harper. Watch this. My heart thudded. I pressed play. The edited cut began with Ethan in rehearsal, his voice clear, the banquet hall bathed in golden daylight. He practiced the words again. Brielle, you've always been special. Then Harper's edit cut cleanly to the dinner footage, the real moment. Same words, same rhythm. She'd aligned them perfectly, frame by frame. The rehearsal and the reality mirrored each other like a cruel reflection. Ethan rehearsing the ring slip, then Ethan performing it. Identical movements, identical phrasing. Even the tilt of his head matched. Then Harper had zoomed in, slowed the footage just before the ring touched my hand. That flicker in his eyes, a glance, almost imperceptible, straight into the lens. Harper. That's not coincidence. That's choreography. I watched it twice, then 3 more times. The nausea came in waves. He hadn't just humiliated me. He'd produced it, directed it. Me. How do I release this without it looking petty? She took a minute before responding. Harper. You don't release it, not yet. And she was right. Revenge without precision is just noise. I needed more. Not just evidence, but context, motive. Something that explained why. I started digging through my old texts, screenshots, emails, anything that still carried his words. Hours passed. The motel clock glowed 2:47 a.m. I was cross-eyed with exhaustion when I found it. A group chat thread from 9 months ago between me, Lana, and Ethan, back when they were still new, back when everything seemed harmless. Ethan had made a joke, at least it had sounded like a joke at the time, about Lana's trust fund. Something about her dad's estate finally coming in handy. Back then, I'd laughed, sent a laughing emoji even, but now I read it again. The words felt colder, sharper, like something buried inside them had been waiting to be understood. It wasn't a joke, it was a probe, a test balloon to see how much Lana had told me. I remembered that coffee date, one of the last times Lana had been truly relaxed around me. She'd ordered an iced oat milk latte, talked too loud, laughed too freely. She told me, offhand, that her dad's inheritance came with a clause. She had to be married by 32 to access it. She was 31. Their wedding? Scheduled 6 days before her birthday. The air in the room seemed to thin. My pulse ticked faster. Ethan didn't love Lana. He loved leverage. And I was just the perfect distraction. The scandal he could weaponize if things went wrong. If Lana ever doubted him, he could twist the narrative, say I had feelings for him, that I was the jealous cousin trying to sabotage their happiness. It was elegant in a sick way. I remembered his face that night, the smug calm when he slipped the ring onto my hand. It wasn't affection, it was calculation, a move in a larger game. That weekend, I decided to stop playing defense. I reached out to the one person I never thought I'd ask for help, Trish. Lana's mom's best friend. She'd known us since we were toddlers. The kind of woman who always wore coral lipstick, smelled faintly of vanilla powder, and called everyone sweetheart, even when she was about to scold them. We met at a garden cafe in La Jolla. The place looked like a scene out of a lifestyle magazine. White parasols, fountains, the smell of roses and espresso blending in the breeze. Trish spotted me first. She waved, her bracelets clinking softly. I sat down across from her. Thank you for meeting me. She studied me for a long second, then smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. You look tired, honey. I am. I told her I needed 10 minutes. She nodded, stirring her tea with a silver spoon. When I slid my phone across the table and pressed play on the rehearsal clip, her hand froze mid-stir. The spoon clinked against porcelain. She didn't say anything while it played, just watched. When it ended, she set her cup down, both hands around it, steadying herself. That boy always did smile too much, she murmured. The words weren't cruel, just resigned. I need 5 minutes at the wedding rehearsal, I said quietly. Just 5. She raised an eyebrow. He won't like that. I'm counting on it. For a moment, she just looked at me, the kind of look that carries years of unspoken understanding. Then she nodded. 5 minutes, she said. Don't waste them. I exhaled for the first time in days. I wasn't alone anymore. I learned to treat light like an accomplice. Not because I loved attention, because light makes truth impossible to hide. That thought had stayed with me all week, the strange comfort of illumination. How light doesn't judge, it just reveals. The rehearsal was set for Thursday evening at the same banquet hall where everything had collapsed. When the email arrived that morning from Lana's planner, polite font, polished tone, asking everyone to arrive 10 minutes early, I stared at it for a long time before clicking accept. Then a text from Trish arrived. Just one line. Be there. Wear something you can move in. I took it literally. Dark jeans, a soft gray blouse, flats, no makeup heavier than tinted balm. I tied my hair back low. No jewelry, no perfume. The easiest disguise is the one that makes you invisible. By the time I parked behind the hall, the sun was slipping low, painting everything in a warm orange haze. The asphalt still radiated heat. Harper was already there, leaning against her car with a coffee cup balanced on the roof, camera bag slung across her shoulder. She looked like someone who'd slept 4 hours but still functioned on caffeine and defiance. When she saw me, she grinned. Harper. You ready to be a ghost? Me. I need to be a ghost with a good memory. Her laugh was quick and dry. She handed me a small earpiece, sleek and discreet, and a second flash drive in a hard plastic case. Harper. We need a controlled playback and a controlled reaction. We can't just drop the file and hope it lands. People fill in blanks online. We're making the blanks impossible to fill. I nodded. The earpiece clicked into place and hummed softly in my ear, a small sound that felt like focus. We walked inside together. The banquet hall smelled the same, candied citrus and polish, like someone had bottled nostalgia and sprayed it across the walls. Staff members fluttered around with clipboards, adjusting centerpieces and fluffing napkins into artificial perfection. The string quartet was tuning somewhere in the hallway, soft dissonant notes colliding before they found harmony. In daylight, the room looked different. Less golden, less cinematic, more real. You could see the fingerprints on the glassware, the scuff marks on the marble, the tiny imperfections hidden by night lighting. Trish met us near the back. She wore her coral lipstick as always, but her expression was businesslike. She had convinced the coordinator to let her check on a seating detail. When she saw me, she gave a tiny nod, squeezed my hand once, and mouthed, "You look fine." That was all I needed. The plan had 3 brutal components: placement, timing, and audience control. Placement first, we'd embed the clip inside a slideshow meant to be a montage of Lana and Ethan's relationship. People expect montages. They're conditioned to relax for them. Harper would start the slideshow with the safe stuff: childhood photos, travel moments, goofy selfies. Then it would cut. The first interruption, rehearsal, take 3, move. Then, side by side, Harper's edit. Ethan practicing the speech against Ethan performing it. Identical gestures, identical phrases. Then, on the final frame, the timestamp overlay, rehearsal 2 days before the dinner. And finally, the last still, his eyes aimed directly into the lens. Timing next, it had to play immediately after the speeches. People would still be seated, cameras still rolling. If Ethan reacted, we'd capture it. If anyone filmed it on their phones, that recording would circulate as reinforcement, not contradiction. The proof would multiply itself. And audience control, Trish's role. She would preface the montage in her warm, disarming tone. Before we get to the happy part, I want to share 2 short clips that mean a lot to me. The family would trust her. They always had. She would be the anchor voice that kept them from suspecting a trap. Harper handled the tech. She was meticulous, scrubbing frames, adjusting color, balancing audio so it sounded identical between the 2 clips. She showed me how she'd overlaid the timestamp watermark, then prepared a second flash drive, the raw file, unedited, metadata intact. That one she would hand to Marcy, one of Lana's oldest friends, the unofficial keeper of family albums. People trusted Marcy with memories. Raw files, Harper said, carried moral weight. Raw kills doubt. We rehearsed once in the parking lot, playing the video on her laptop in the backseat of her car. The sound of Ethan's voice echoed against the concrete walls. I felt my throat tighten every time his name reached my ears. Harper glanced at me. "Remember," she said quietly, "we're not out for revenge the way he thinks. We're out for truth. And truth looks ugly when it wears a suit." I laughed, or tried to. It came out small, brittle. By 6:15, guests began filing in. The air filled with chatter, perfume, and the clink of glassware. The string quartet had moved to a corner, playing something light and forgettable. Lana arrived last. She looked radiant, hair styled in loose curls, dress a pale rose color that caught the fading light. When she hugged Aunt Maureen, people sighed at how beautiful she looked. When she hugged me, it was brief, polite, instinctive. I caught the faint scent of her perfume, something floral and expensive, and for a second I remembered the sisterhood we used to have before everything fractured. Ethan made his rounds, all charm and composure. His laugh was smooth, rehearsed, like he'd ironed it that morning. When our eyes met, he tipped his head slightly, acknowledging me like I was a detail in a story he'd already rewritten. I gave him nothing back. At 7 sharp, the house lights dimmed. Trish took the mic. Her coral lipstick caught the light, unshaken. Trish. We all know how much time Lana and Ethan spent getting to this moment. A few of us thought it would be nice to share a short montage, 2 clips that, I think, show something important. She smiled at Lana. Lana smiled back, hesitant but trusting. Trish. Marcy, will you start the slideshow? Marcy clicked the remote. Soft piano music drifted through the speakers. Childhood photos faded in and out. Lana with braces, Lana with the puppy, Lana on a college trip. The room softened, people smiling, whispering to each other. The camera crew adjusted their focus for candids. Then the music stopped. The frame cut. Grainy footage filled the screen. Ethan pacing in the empty banquet hall, running through the same toast, the same gestures. The sound of his voice echoed faintly through the speakers. Betrayal, you've always been special. Laughter at first, small, uncertain. Someone whispered, "Oh, he practiced." Then the split screen appeared. Rehearsal on the left, dinner on the right. The two Ethans moved in sync. Same hand lift, same pause, same tilt of the head. The laughter died. Harper's timestamp overlay appeared in red text at the bottom corner. June 8th, 4:12 p.m. June 10th, 7:03 p.m. Gasps. Aunt Maureen's hand flew to her mouth. Someone muttered, "Oh my God." Ethan's smile cracked, subtle but visible. He stood halfway, as if deciding whether to laugh or flee. Ethan, "Haha, okay, we like to keep things interesting." His tone didn't match his face. It was strained, desperate. The crowd wasn't laughing. Lana's eyes widened, her lips parting like she'd just seen a ghost. For the first time since the engagement dinner, someone else looked as shocked as I had felt that night. Phones rose like a wave. Someone began recording. Another whispered, "Play it again." But Harper had already switched to the second file. Marcy stood, visibly shaking, holding her laptop. She opened the file properties. Marcy. This was created June 8th, 4:12 p.m., same location. The silence was electric. Someone blurted out, "Why would he even do that?" Another, "Is that legal?" Questions. Perfect chaos. Ethan lifted his hands, palms out. Ethan. "It was a joke. We were trying to lighten the mood. We wanted..." Lana. "A joke?" Her voice sliced through him. "You humiliated my cousin and my family for a joke?" The sound of her voice made every camera in the room tilt toward her. Trish's hand found mine under the table and squeezed, grounding me. I didn't feel victory. I felt clarity. Predictably, Aunt Maureen rose next, her voice trembling. "Aunt Maureen, Lana, sweetheart, what do you want to do?" Lana turned toward the screen, toward me. Lana. "I want the truth." Her words rang like a verdict. Ethan's mouth opened, closed. He stammered something about performance art and misinterpretation, words that meant nothing now that light had exposed them. And then I stood. I hadn't planned to. It just happened. The lights from the projector washed over me, and for once, I didn't flinch. Me. "Lana, sit down. Listen to me for 2 minutes." The room went silent, that tense kind of silence that hums. Me. "You deserve to know the difference between someone who loves you and someone who uses you. He rehearsed humiliating me so that when you saw the chaos, you'd think I caused it, so that your sympathy would go to the wrong person." My voice stayed level. No tremor. I laid out everything. The rehearsal clip, the timestamps, the text that hinted at her trust fund, the metadata files, the digital fingerprints. I spoke like someone presenting evidence, not emotion. Lana's face hardened. "Lana, show me the texts." Trish took my phone, scrolled, and passed it over. The words on screen weren't poetic, they were transactional. Questions about deadlines and timing and making sure the narrative lands. Ethan reached for the mic again. "You're twisting this." A voice interrupted from the back. Powell, one of Lana's college friends. Powell. "We were told to film reactions, Ethan. You asked us to make it look authentic. You said that. I have the messages." The crowd shifted, whispers turning into currents. The dots were connecting faster than Ethan could spin. The air in the room changed. Less gossip, more reckoning. The word I heard, murmured behind me, was accountability. By the time the lights came back up, Ethan was alone at the head table, the engagement ring box still sitting there like a confession in velvet. Lana left without looking back. The string quartet tried to play something cheerful, but it landed hollow. Trish pulled me aside into the foyer where the last of the sunset glowed through the tall windows. The air smelled faintly of roses and ozone. She pressed a folded envelope into my hand. Inside, names, reporters, legal contacts, and a handwritten note. "If she wants to press this, she'll need help that money can't buy. You have the evidence. Decide what to do with it." Me. I don't want to ruin her. I just want her to have a choice. Trish. Then give her that choice. That night, Ethan tried his own kind of damage control, posting an apology that sounded prepackaged and sterile. He called it a misunderstanding, a poorly timed joke. But he didn't post the rehearsal clip. He couldn't. The internet already had it. By morning, the tone had shifted. The comments weren't about me anymore. They were about him, about why someone would stage cruelty and call it humor. Threads appeared, dissecting the timestamps. The internet had turned its spotlight elsewhere. At noon, my phone buzzed. Lana, we need to talk. Now. No punctuation, no emojis, just the kind of message you send when you're standing at a crossroads. We met at a small diner near the coast, the kind with chipped mugs and boots that smelled like burnt coffee. She came in wearing no makeup, scarf tight around her neck. Lana. Show me everything. Her voice was low, controlled. I slid the flash drive across the table, told her what I had found, what I had done, who had helped. I told her I didn't want to be her villain or her headline. She watched the video on my laptop, eyes glassy, jaw set. When it ended, she exhaled slowly. Lana, I don't know if I can marry someone who treats me like an asset. She said it plainly, not dramatically, like a woman reading the final line of a book she no longer loved. We spent hours talking about logistics, lawyers, statements, timing, about what to tell her father, about how truth, once lit, can't be unlit. Before leaving, she asked quietly, Will you stand with me? Me. I'll stand wherever you need me, but I won't rewrite what happened. She nodded. That was enough. That night, back in the motel, I backed up every file. One copy for Trish, one for Lana, one mailed to a lawyer friend in Minneapolis. I labeled the envelope Light, because Light had been our accomplice. Now it was our witness. The rehearsal footage hit 2 million views in under a week. But the truth wasn't in the view count. It was in the silence that followed. The kind of silence that stretches across phone lines, that hums between family members, that fills the spaces where laughter used to live. Lana called off the wedding 3 days before it was supposed to happen. There was no headline, no interview, no statement on behalf of the bride, just a series of quiet actions that said everything louder than words could. She called the planner herself, canceled the deposit, told the caterer she was sorry for the short notice. The florist said she didn't sound heartbroken, just finished. Then she packed up her things. She left the condo she'd shared with Ethan, the one they'd decorated in warm tones and empty promises, and moved back to Minneapolis. She told me she needed her mother's quiet house, the kind with drafty windows, creaky floors, and silence thick enough to hear your own heartbeat. She said she missed the cold, real cold, the kind that burns the air clean. The footage didn't die down, though. It moved like a slow leak, steady and unending. Clips from the rehearsal slideshow appeared on news feeds, reshared by strangers who didn't even know our last names. Someone added dramatic music. Another slowed the video until it felt like a true crime episode. The internet loved its morality plays. Commentary creators broke it down frame by frame. Watch his eyes here, one said, circling Ethan's smirk with digital ink. Notice her reaction. See how she freezes? That's trauma response, not guilt. Another creator went viral reading from California's civil fraud statutes, speculating whether intentional public deception could apply. They said phrases like emotional damages and reputational harm as if empathy could be litigated, but I didn't care about any of it anymore. Not the noise, not the narratives, not the hashtags. I didn't need people to like me. I just needed the record to be correct. Lana filed her own record soon after. She met with her family's lawyer and petitioned to revoke the pre-marital trust allocation. That trust, her inheritance, had been tied to a good faith union. Her lawyer used a phrase that I'll never forget, performance-based deception. They paired it with the rehearsal file, Harper's cut, the timestamps, the proof of orchestration. Lana didn't sue him, she didn't press charges, she just revoked her signature, and in doing so, took her life back. I mailed her a letter. A real letter, not a text, not an email. It felt almost old-fashioned, writing on thick paper from a small stationery shop in St. Paul, the kind of place that still smelled like ink and cedar, where the clerk wrapped the envelope in twine and smiled without knowing she was handing me a small act of closure. I wrote slowly, my handwriting uneven. The words came out simple. You were right to glow. I wrote, he just didn't deserve to be standing next to you while you did it. I sealed it with a wax stamp I hadn't used in years, something my mother had given me back when people still sent postcards. Then I dropped it in a blue mailbox under a gray sky, the kind that promised snow. 2 weeks later, an envelope appeared in my own mail slot. Lana's handwriting. Inside, one sentence. I'm starting to believe the camera wasn't the problem. It just recorded what I refused to see. I sat with that for a long time, because that was the thing about cameras. They don't invent, they reveal. By then, the frenzy had slowed. New scandals had taken over, a celebrity divorce, a politician's leaked text. The internet's appetite moved fast, always hungry, never full. But the footage stayed online, archived in small corners, reposted by accounts that never forget. And me? I stayed quiet. I didn't delete my profiles. I didn't post cryptic quotes about healing. I didn't try to reclaim my image. I kept the rehearsal file, the flash drives, the screenshots, the timestamps, not because I wanted revenge anymore, but because memory fades, and the truth, if you don't guard it, gets rewritten by those who shout the loudest. I wanted to remember how quickly a person can twist a story, and how slowly you have to untwist it to make the light reach the right angles again. Eventually, I went home. Minnesota felt smaller after California, quieter, honest in its own cold way. The first morning back, frost glazed the windows of my apartment. The air smelled of pine and old radiators. I could see my breath as I unpacked. I drove down to the lake road I used to run before dawn. The water was half frozen, the sky pale blue, geese carving silent patterns overhead. The world looked washed clean, like it had pressed restart. When I opened my car trunk, I saw them, 4 glitter-stained centerpiece samples still sitting where I'd left them months ago. The remnants of a wedding that never happened. I carried them to the Goodwill bin, one by one, their sequins catching the weak winter sun. When the last one hit the bottom of the bin, I felt something lift, like a thread I'd been tangled in had finally snapped loose. That evening, I lit a candle. The jasmine scent filled the room, soft and calming. I brewed a pot of tea and sat cross-legged on the living room floor, laptop glowing in front of me. I opened the final file Harper had sent, the one she called the ending. It began just like before, Ethan's hand reaching toward mine, the ring glinting, the gasps frozen midair. But this time, Harper had done something subtle. The footage froze. Right before contact, the moment before the ring touched my skin. Then, slowly, it began to rewind. Frame by frame, his hand moved backward, the glass lowered, the smile faded in reverse, the sound rewound into static, until it reached that tiny, invisible second before everything changed. The moment before the toast, before the smirk, before the plan, just stillness. I stared at that paused frame, the split instant where everything could have gone another way. It was so quiet that I could hear the faint buzz of the laptop fan. Candle flame flickered against the window pane, reflected twice, like twin versions of me watching from opposite sides of the glass. I realized something then. It wasn't about undoing what happened. It was about owning what remained. That night at the engagement dinner, Ethan tried to frame me, so I reframed him. And now, when the cameras flash, I don't flinch. I don't smile to survive. I don't edit myself for the comfort of others. I let the light do what it does best. Reveal. Some nights, I still play the clip again. Not out of obsession, but remembrance. I let the images remind me what silence costs. What it takes to speak when your voice shakes. The world moves on, always. But sometimes, before I close the laptop, I pause on that same still frame. His hand reaching, mine frozen midair, and I whisper a quiet promise to myself. Never again. Never again will I mistake spectacle for sincerity. Never again will I let someone else write the ending before I do. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.